So, Subnautica 2 is set to release in early access later this year, and the trailer did such a good job of capturing my fear of the ocean that it got me in the mood to replay the original. The first Subnautica game is a game that is very near and dear to my heart. I started playing it during early access, and even with its rough edges, I enjoyed my time with it. Then the full game came out, and even though I had already put a lot of hours into it during early access, I was still more than happy to start fresh and play through the finished game. Normally, I don't really like playing survival games, especially if I'm playing solo. So the fact that I have about 130 hours in this game is really a true testament to how good it is. Subnautica does so many things right, like atmosphere, sound design, music, and creature design, and while those are all great, they would really mean nothing to me if the game didn't have such a great gameplay loop. Subnautica's gameplay loop is very simple. You start off with basically nothing, go out and collect resources so you can craft equipment, which will then allow you to explore new areas that'll have new resources that you'll then use to craft new equipment to explore even more new areas, and the cycle goes on and on until the credits roll. This gameplay loop is pretty common for survival games. But the reason I think this works so well in Subnautica is because the game does such a great job of pushing you into new areas, especially since exploring these new areas for the first time can be pretty terrifying, especially if you have a fear of the ocean. Something that I think helps this a lot too is the fact that Subnautica's map is static and not procedurally generated like a lot of other survival games. Since biomes are always in the same place, that means players will always know where specific biomes, resources, and wrecks are on repeat playthroughs. While it is great for repeat playthroughs, that doesn't really help someone on their very first playthrough unless there's something to point them in the right direction. Thankfully, the devs did add something to help with this, and I think it's an amazing contributor to the early and mid-game gameplay loop. The thing I'm talking about is the radio. The radio does so much heavy lifting for the gameplay loop in the early and mid-game. After you repair your life pod, you'll start receiving audio broadcasts every once in a while. These broadcasts are usually from other life pods and will contain their coordinates. And each life pod has a recipe for an equipment upgrade, and more importantly, they'll usually either be in a new biome or near some point of interest. Take for example, Life Pod 17. You get a transmission from them pretty early on in the game, and in their message they mention how their pod was nearly crushed by the Seamoth Bay, and they're stranded near a cave system with some kind of snake-like creature trying to attack them. Once you reach the coordinates, you'll find Life Pod 17 near the previously mentioned Seamoth Bay, and you'll also find the entrance to the cave system that they mentioned. That may not seem like much, but this one life pod helps you find a wreck with new blueprints to craft, and it leads you to a new biome which has new materials and a Degassi base which will have even more blueprints for you. In fact, pretty much every radio broadcast follows this example, like the broadcast from LifePod 13, which will lead you to the Mushroom Forest where you can find blueprints for the Cyclops sub, or LifePod 19's broadcast, which will eventually lead you to an island where you can find a Degassi base. Eventually, though, you will stop receiving broadcasts, and at this point the only thing guiding you forward is finding a way to shut down the gun that destroyed the Aurora in order to escape the planet. This one data entry you get from the enforcement platform tells you about 3 important alien facilities that are deep underwater, which means that your only way of shutting down the gun is to go deeper. And in order to do that, you have to go through the Lost River. This part of the game easily could have been the worst and left a lot of players lost, but I think the devs handled this pretty well. There are 4 entrances to the Lost River, which I think is a pretty good amount since it ensures that players won't have to spend hours just looking for one single path forward. Most entrances can be found near some point of interest. One is found near a Degassi base, and another 2 can be found by exploring near some of the life pods that the radio points you to, because the radio is the unsung hero of direction in this game. The final entrance is the only one that isn't near a specific point of interest. Instead, it's found by exploring the deepest part of the Blood Kelp Trench, and I actually like this because it rewards players for exploration, and I mean, come on, look at this place. Obviously they're going to put something at the bottom of this. Once you do reach the Lost River, it's basically just a straight shot through the rest of the game, at least until you get to the primary containment facility. Okay, I really want to talk about this part of the game because I think it does such a good job of guiding players through one of the final stages of the game, especially since this part could have been really frustrating if they didn't handle this right. So after reaching the primary containment facility and exploring around a bit, you'll find out that the only way to cure yourself, and by extension shut down the gun so you can escape the planet, is to create a hatching enzyme for the Sea Emperor's eggs. The hatching enzyme is made from 5 different plant samples. One you can pretty easily find in the Sea Emperor's tank, but the other 4 are found all across the map in different biomes. What I love is that there are also 4 portals that can be found in the primary containment facility, and each of these portals will lead to a biome where you can find one of the ingredients for the hatching enzyme. I think this is a really great way to help narrow down a player's search without them having to resort to going to the wiki. Anyway, that's really all I had to say about Subnautica's gameplay and exploration loop. I just think Subnautica is such a great designed game, and I'm really excited for the sequel to come out. And while I am excited to see what new stuff the devs add, I'm honestly just most excited to have more Subnautica. Anyway, that's really all I had to say. Check out some of my other stuff, or don't. I'm not your mom, I can't force you. Anyway, thanks for watching.